Today we are making one of the best kept secrets about zucchini. So this is a giant zucchini. As you can tell, it's as long as my forearm. That's the thing about zucchini. If you look away for 30 seconds, you miss it, and suddenly you have one that's the size of a baseball bat. And there's things you can do with this. Obviously, zucchini bread is one of the most popular, but this would make a ridiculous amount of zucchini bread. You can slice this or shred it and freeze it, and then use it in future zucchini bread or throw it into sauces and things like that in the wintertime. It gets super watery when you do that. It does not freeze well because all the little cells get exploded when it freezes. You can cut this in half and hollow it out and stuff it, which I do on occasion. That's kind of a nice thing to do. I like zucchini. I'm not really a huge zucchini eater. It's not my favorite summer vegetable, believe it or not. But I do like it stuffed. I like it undercooked. And so I typically enjoy it more as in salads and things like that. Although I've got some other recipes I'll show you guys later. I'm learning some new things. But what I'm going to do with this today is I'm going to dehydrate it. And so you slice your zucchini into, I would guess these are about 1/8 to 1/4 inch rounds. This is going to be a little bit pithy in the middle because of that seed cavity, because it's so big. And you can do this on a mandolin if your zucchini is not gigantic. This one is so big that I don't think it'll actually fit on my mandolin, so I'm doing this by hand. But you slice these into coins, and then you put them in your dehydrator, usually with a little bit of seasoning salt, and dry them. And then they need to be stored in an airtight container because they are pretty hydrophilic. They will absorb moisture from the air. And so if you live in a humid environment, they will get soft very quickly if they're just sitting out of the dehydrator. But they make the best substitute for like a potato chip that there is. They're really tasty, really good with things like hummus or just a dip of ranch dressing. So yeah, they make a really nice alternative to a potato chip, and they store well as long as you keep them airtight. And so I've been making some version of dried zucchini for years and years, and so I will show you this, and then I will show you my dehydrator, and we'll talk a little bit about that. Hopefully we got a slow motion of that rolling towards you there. This is a huge, huge zucchini. I'll put the variety of zucchini that this is up on the screen. Somebody recommended it to me a couple of years ago, and I really like it a lot better than traditional zucchini. So it's a little bit firmer, a little less watery. It's huge. The plants are monstrous. It needs a huge amount of space. But I really, really enjoy it. I think it's a much better variety than traditional zucchini, which I find to be kind of watery and sort of flavorless. So we're going to get a lot of zucchini chips out of this giant zucchini. I do like using a mandolin if I have one for this because it's a lot more consistent in terms of drying. But as I said, this is so big that I don't think we're going to be able to do it on a mandolin. Okay, so we are now up in my commercial kitchen, just because this is where the dehydrators happen to live. I use them for a lot of commercial drying of tomatoes and peppers and herbs. But we're just gonna start lining these sheets. I'll link below the particular dehydrator I had. I used a American Harvest round one for years, and I still have it. It still works. And they're a great beginner dehydrator. The two things you want to look for in a dehydrator are multiple temperatures, so not just on, off, but multiple temperatures that you can dehydrate things on, and then also a fan. A fan is absolutely critical for drying things out and also for circulating the air so that the temperature is fairly even between the different trays and the different locations. And so the really, really cheap ones, they will have no temperature regulation, and they will just have on, off, and no fan. And that's not what you want. It's not worth buying those. Different temperatures for different foods. So vegetables and fruits generally around 135 in a dehydrator. And then a lot of herbs are as low as you can go. So anywhere from 100 to 105 is pretty typical. Because there's so many volatile oils in herbs that you want a really low temperature so that you don't blow off all of the flavor that you're trying to preserve when you're preserving herbs. So lower temperature is better, which is why I don't recommend drying herbs in your oven. Most ovens will not go below 170, and so that is definitely not an ideal temperature for herbs. So these are going to get dried at 135. And squash are a little bit sticky. They have an interesting kind of, I'm not sure what you call it, but mucilaginous quality to them, which is very handy if you're sprinkling your zucchini chips with spice, which I am. So I kind of take advantage of that. There's one I didn't quite get. You'll get a few sometimes that you know, they're really thin on one side because you didn't get the line up exactly right. Can you believe that's one zucchini? Good Lord, that was a big zucchini. And then you don't have to sprinkle them with anything. I like to sprinkle them with seasoning salt. And certainly you could use whatever you liked here. You know, I would say something with some salt is a good idea just for flavor. A little garlic powder is good, a little black pepper is good. I'll link to this recipe for my seasoning salt. And that's really all it is salt, pepper, garlic powder, and a little bit of paprika. But there's a zillion different things out there. You can make your own or try your own. This would be also really good with like a chili powder so that you had a little bit of spice, heat to them. Whatever you like your chips flavored with, try that. And you could do different trays with different flavors if you wanted to try some different things as well. The nice thing about stacking these is that the stuff I missed falls down to the next level, which is handy. And you don't want to pack these so tight that there's no air circulation around and through them. I probably could have spread these out a little more. I didn't know how many I was going to need. And they'll shrink as they dry as well. Most vegetables are at least 70% water. And sometimes something like a cucumber is up to 96% water. So there's a lot of water in these, and the reason they're preserved is when you dry that water out, it's not that there's no bacteria on them, it's that there's nothing for the bacteria to grow on because there's no moisture. And so that's why dehydrating works for preserving food. All right, I could have put twice as many in these. You could definitely, this is a 9 rack. And these are thin enough that I could have put 9 racks in here. I just have one zucchini, so I'm just going to put half as many. This interesting door does not really close. It just hangs from the top, which is an odd design, but it works. And then we're just going to set that for 135, and we will come back in about 24 hours. This dehydrator does not have a timer. You can buy Excaliburs that do have timers. In fact, this one does. This is a much more expensive model that I bought used from a friend. And it has a timer and a little more complicated thing. And weirdly, I actually prefer this one. I like the plastic sheets. I think they are much easier to get food off of than these stainless steel sheets. So yeah, so we'll come back in 24 hours and see what we've got. All right, we are back. It is the next day. It's actually the next evening, so these have been going for more than 24 hours, simply because we had to take a drive today to pick up some chicken feed, and that's a 4-hour trip, and so I didn't have time to do this before we left. But here are our zucchini chips, and I'm checking. I want these to be really crisp. Like, I don't want there to be any softness to these at all. They feel really good. They really didn't need as much time as they got. This one is pretty thick, as an example, and you can see how that just cracks. That's what I'm looking for, because it's essentially a potato chip or a zucchini chip, and so I really want them to be super dry. These will stick just slightly to the container, and I'm just going to take these off and put them in an airtight jar. You really need to have them be airtight. They are what's called hydrophilic, which means they absorb moisture from the air very, very easily. And so you want to make sure these stay airtight, because otherwise they will soften up in storage if you don't keep them dry. This is a 1/2 gallon ball jar. They're really not good for canning, with the exception of juice. You can put things like apple juice in them or grape juice, but that's it. The only safe recipes you can can in a 1/2 gallon sized jar are juices. However, they are awesome as storage containers, and I have a very large number of them because of that. This is a wide mouth, which is nice for something like this, because I can get my hand in there easily, and it's good for these wider chips. You can see how much these shrunk. You remember when we started, these were touching. Most of them were very close to touching. They're clearly not touching now. So they've lost a lot of weight in terms of water, and they've shrunk up a little bit. That's cherries. One more. I was also drying some cherries at the same time. It's been a busy preservation week. You can see this is this is one of the ones where I missed the edge, and so it's a little bit thin, but still fine. Stuck to the thing a little bit because it was so thin. But there you go. That's it. So that's what our giant baseball-sized zucchini looks like now. We have zucchini chips, and I'm just going to put a lid on that. Make sure it's nice and tight. And I'm going to write the date so that I know how long these have been in the jar. So July 2022. And I'm just going to nibble on this one. You can hear how crunchy that is. You guys, these are so good. A little bit sweet, a little bit savory, nice flavoring with that sauce or that all-purpose seasoning on there. Really good with hummus. Makes a wonderful dip for hummus if you're trying to lower your carbs a little bit. Yeah, so zucchini chips. Great use for oversized zucchini. Give it a try.